This meeting is being
Good
recorded.
morning, everybody, and thank you for attending today's restaurant networking meeting. We are a group of professional vendors to the food service industry, and we are here to meet each other, get to know each other, and to feel comfortable recommending each other when we see our clients in the field. We also are here for the benefit of the restaurant industry. Any restaurant owners, managers, and chefs who may see this on our YouTube page, which is Today's Restaurant, please feel free to give us a call at 561-620-8888 if you'd like to attend one of our meetings and meet the group. It's good for you and it's good for us. If you have a problem in your business, whether you're a restaurant or not, feel free to give us a call and set up an appointment to come to a meeting, because this group has hundreds of years of experience amongst its members, 99 of those years mostly with Bruce. And if we can solve the problem for you, we know somebody who can. And that's invaluable, and that's a service to the industry, which is suffering at this moment. I got a call yesterday from a restaurant owner in North Carolina who just called to thank me for doing what we do to help out the industry. And that helps. That makes it worthwhile. That was good. So today we have a returning guest. We have Rick, number 2, and Steve, both of who were here before. And today we have a presentation from within the group. But before I introduce Chris, it's very important that you, as a member of the group, schedule a presentation, especially now since we're on YouTube. It allows us to know what your company does in more detail, and which allows us to recommend you more confidently. So, without further ado, we're going to introduce Chris Kauffman, who is our resident recruiter, and he's very busy these days, I'm sure. And Rick, the floor is yours. Thank you.
I'll take it from Rick. Good morning.
I'm sorry, Chris.
That's okay, Hal.
He's right above you on my screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Howard, did you say, if you're talking to me, you have to say Rick G. I think that might be a
That's what we're gonna do.
here.
That's what we're gonna do, Rick.
Rick G. All right,
Rick
good
G.
to see you guys. Good morning, everyone.
No,
Thank you so much
hold on, Rick.
having me back.
That was my mistake. We're gonna have the presentation first. We're gonna go to Chris.
Chris,
Thank you,
Chris.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Thank you.
My fault.
And thank you, Hal. No, Howard. Yeah, there we go. Good morning, everybody. Chris Kauffman and Company, the only president Chris Kauffman and Company has ever had. Had the pleasure of recruiting in the restaurant industry since 1981. And we primarily work on behalf of the restaurant owners to find the talent that they are looking for. I got a couple of pieces of information I'd like to share with you. Some of it from some great books. Here's a little capsule summary of what a recruiter does as a specialist. I consider myself a specialist as opposed to a generalist. Now, some recruiters work as generalists, which means they may find a VP of marketing for an insurance company, and then the next week they might be finding a general manager for a hotel. Well, our specialization, it happens to be the restaurant industry. Now, here's the story, a true story, about a specialist who started out in the recruiting business. There was an order of Catholic nuns running a state hospital, a sizable Connecticut hospital, and they lost their manager of administration. So they met with this recruiter. His name was John Witt. And the sister, the nun, says, look, we don't know what we're going to do. And Mr. Witt said, we're going to conduct a search. And she said, what does that mean? He said, you hire us and we'll find you somebody. And she said, you don't understand, Mr. Witt. he was a good Catholic boy. Okay, that's fine. So spec number one, we want a good Catholic boy. What else? I want him to have a large family, 5 children or more. Okay, fine. I want him to have had at least one family member who is a nun so he can understand the sisters. Fine, that's what we'll put down. 7 weeks later, Mr. Witt said, okay, I had not only one candidate, I had 3 guys for her. They were all Catholic. They all had at least 5 kids. They all had at least one sister who was in a convent, and they all had master's degrees in hospital administration. And that's what Indeed.com cannot do. And that's what a recruiter can do. And so when we take an assignment, we have a 12-step process that we go through. And it's rather simple. We sit down and do a profile development, number 1. And number 2, the core recruiting activities, which is identifying and contacting and qualifying talent. And number 3 is screening. Number 4, presentation of candidates. Number 5, search updates. Number 6, interviewing. Number 7, background validation. Number 8, professional references. Number 9, the negotiations. Number 10, resignations and counteroffers. Number 11, facilitate transition. And number 12, follow-up. Those are the 12 principles that we use in any search assignment. And it helps us identify who we need faster than any other process of which I am aware. The recruiters work one of 2 ways, either contingency or retainer. Now, contingency means you don't pay the recruiter unless the recruiter brings you somebody who you will actually hire or you have actually hired. And retainer is just that. You are retaining the recruiter to go find somebody. The first 3 years of my short but illustrious 41-year career in recruiting was all contingency. Nah, don't pay me. No, till I get you somebody. And then I realized, I'm working for nothing. And I could do a lot of work and end up with nothing. I can't get my time back. I can't get my investment in whatever research I've had to come across to get the job done. And I thought, we're going to do a retainer situation. And that really helps to identify who's fact and who's fiction, because some companies would put an assignment out to a recruiter just to have the recruiter go do basically a salary survey, if you will. Yeah, go get us a chef, and this is what we need, et cetera, et cetera. And then you work on it a couple of weeks, and you bring back a candidate and say, okay, here's the chef, here's the background you wanted, et cetera. Well, my brother just graduated culinary school. We're going to give him a shot. What? What about my work? So we don't get involved with contingency searches anymore. We do work on retainer where they have to put some money down. Now, why use a recruiter? Well, it's all about saving time and saving money, because the recruiter, I have access to assets that companies do not have. Exhibit A, here's a resume. Let's just say it's Sammy Jones. All right. And I just got this resume last night and I'm thinking, I've seen this guy before. And sure enough, I have a database of several thousand people. He has a rather unusual name. That's how I tripped the memory. And I called up the resume that Sammy sent us about 4 years ago. Very different than what Sammy sent last night. Matter of fact, a couple of the companies are left off the resume that he sent in last night. So we know this from the get-go. Sammy may not be on the up and up. And the funny thing is, sometimes on a resume, people, even if they use spell check, they need to use logic, a logic requirement to see what they're actually talking about. I got a guy's resume one time. He said he was the #1 salesperson in the company and he received a plague as opposed to a plaque. Okay. Another one was a reference. The guy said, here's a reference from the place I used to work. And the reference said, consider yourself lucky if this man does any work at your company. You possibly take it as you
Hey, he was just being honest, right?
yeah. And then we had a candidate, went through 3 interviews. The company said, we'd like to hire him. Would you validate that degree? I said, sure. So we called the University of Georgia and they said, yeah, he was here in 1990 to 1994, but he did not graduate. So I called the guy up and I said, Chuck, Georgia says you were there in 1990 and 1994, but your resume says Bachelor of Arts. And the school says you did not graduate. What's the story? Chris, I thought I graduated. You thought you graduated. Okay. Chuck, it's June 1994. Mom and dad, cap and gown. Any of this ring a bell? Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I like to meet people in person is because when you meet somebody in person, you can tell a lot about a person. There was a recruiter named Jerry Cohen, taught me a lot about the business early on. He was a recruiter out of Chicago. And Jerry had just a fanatical bent when it came to presenting a candidate. He said, at the very worst, it's going to be a great conversation. And at the very best, it's going to be an offer. And I feel that everybody I put in front of a client company should be worthy of an offer. And he had an independent restaurant in downtown Chicago call and say, hey, we need a new general manager, somebody that really knows guest service to the max. So Jerry sent in a guy who has all kinds of accolades, didn't get hired. Jerry sent in another guy, all kinds of accolades, tremendous background, wonderful credentials, didn't get hired. So Jerry said, Chris, I decided I need to go down and see the restaurant owner and get to know a little bit about what's going on. So we went down to meet with the restaurant owner. The restaurant owner came out. Hi, Jerry, how you doing? The restaurant owner was about 5'6", 5'7". Both those candidates were 6'4". So the next candidate Jerry sent in, not quite as qualified as the first two, was about 5'8", 5'9". Great guy. We love this guy. He'd be the judge. And sometimes I ran into Joe Lee when he was CEO of all the Darden restaurants. They were called General Mills restaurants back in the 1980s. And I ran into him, walked up and introduced myself. I said, I know you don't remember me because I was just a manager trainee and you were the chief executive for all the restaurants that General Mills restaurant had. My name is Chris Kauffman. I do recruiting. And he said, well, let me tell you what we need. We need a VP of marketing for Red Lobster. He said, here's the guy in my office to call. So I called the guy, he gave me the specs. And one of the key specs was somebody who had booked television time because Red Lobster was going to get more involved with television commercials. I said, okay. So it's the early 1980s. I'm thinking, who's on television? Fast food. So I'm flipping through Advertising Age magazine, which I used to buy just as a way to really read about marketing, which is something I've always enjoyed reading about. And there was a story about a guy named Darryl Diamond who had recently resigned from Wendy's as VP of marketing, and he was going to go do his own business. At that time, Wendy's was out of Dublin, Ohio. I called Dublin, Ohio, long distance information. He was in the book. I called him up. He said, oh, I appreciate the call, Chris, but I've got something else going on. You need to contact Ray Caruso over at McDonald's. I said, okay. So I called Ray Caruso at McDonald's, and he'd been with McDonald's 15 years, and he'd done a lot of really good things. And I told him about the opportunity with Red Lobster. Short story. From there, he got the job. And that's just a matter of recruiting and contacting and coordinating and making things happen from there. There's another book called Up the Organization, one of the great business books ever, even though it was published in the 1960s. It talks about every company needs to have a VP of killing things. He talks about a history professor at Hofstra who discovered that the British created a civil service job in 1803, calling for a man to stand on the cliffs of Dover with a spyglass. This person on the cliffs of Dover was supposed to ring a bell if he saw Napoleon was coming. That job was eliminated in 1945. So the assets that we can bring to the table, because a lot of times companies will say, well, what are people paying for a general manager? Well, the answer to that is multifaceted. What can your business, comfortably afford? In other words, what is your volume? Because if I've got a general manager running a $12 million white tablecloth upscale steakhouse, he's probably making more than an Applebee's general manager. And and everybody in between. And then also, in addition to the salary, we're talking quality of life more so now than ever before. You know, tell me about the workaday world in your business. Well, we have 8 national holidays that we recognize. Well, there's a week's vacation right there. So, and that's also where I found out such a dearth of benefits, and that's why I've turned as many people as I can onto Bruce Silver and what he does to help these small businesses basically enhance their whole program, not just manage their employees, because I mean they feel like they want to manage their own employees, but to enhance their benefits, enhance their attractiveness, level the playing field, if you will, in the industry. And independent restaurants, they don't have the assets that the big companies do, but there are ways to level the playing field, and that's what it's all about. So it's also, I went down and met a minority-owned company in downtown Atlanta, an African-American owned company. I went to meet the gentleman who was in charge of it, and on his wall were pictures of Jesse Owens, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, autographed pictures, et cetera, and Martin Luther King, et cetera. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, Chris, I don't know how to say this, but I hope you understand that perhaps an African-American person would do very well with us. Really? Well, let me get rid of this white sheet. So, and, you know, it's just a matter of playing to the crowd, so to speak. I'm not here to tell them how to run their business. I can give them advice and suggestions. I can also tell them what's going on in the marketplace, because I'm in the marketplace every day, and also give them information on salary as well as the interview process. Now, I've had a client in Atlanta lose 2 really good candidates in the last 4 months because it's for a sous chef position. Their interview process is 3 to 5 weeks, which is ridiculous. And I mean, if the job was paying $200,000 a year, maybe people could wait for it, but it's not paying $200,000 a year. And the first process, they meet with the executive chef. That's fine. Then they come to work in the restaurant for about 7 to 8 hours, and the restaurant, to their credit, will pay that person $150 for coming in, hanging out for 7 to 8 hours. A lot of times those reality days are 3 to 4 hours. And then they come back and do a tasting. And all this stuff has gotten so stretched out. You know, have him come back a week from Saturday, have him come back a week from next Monday or whatever. And it's like, when that person is on the hot seat and they're looking for an opportunity, they're looking, you know, and you got to strike while the iron is hot. So when I go out into a restaurant show, like the Florida restaurant show coming up in Orlando in November, there isn't anybody I meet who isn't a prospect or a candidate or a reference or a client. That's how I roll throughout the world. And the best thing that I can offer people is trust, that we've always dealt from the top of the deck, not from the bottom of the deck. And we don't put a gun to anybody's head to make a change, because believe it or not, if they don't want to take the opportunity, there are other people, believe me. So the geographic area that we work, we have placed people in Seattle, Washington. We placed Dallas, Texas. Most of our work is the Southeast United States, because that's where I started my recruiting career with a guy named Joe Siegel in Charlotte, North Carolina. Then we moved to McLean, Virginia, his company. And then I started my own company in Atlanta back in 1983. And then and currently work out of Vidalia, Georgia, the sweet onion city. And we have found out that technology is a wonderful thing, because just like this Zoom meeting right now pulls all of us together, which is great. So any questions, comments, concerns?
Chris, I got one, and this, you know, my son has been working for the local Chick-fil-A now for 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, Chick-fil-A's are franchise. Okay. So the owner purchases the franchise and he runs a franchise. And what we're running into there is, since it's a family run business, they think that families should be doing everything. And I'm sure you run into this. So about 2.5 weeks ago, he was approached by the general manager, which is the owner's firstborn son. And the back of the house manager walked him in the office, closed the door, and said, "Hey, we want to offer you a raise and a promotion. We want you to go all nights, and we're going to give you $3 more an hour." That's great. Puts them up to almost $17 an hour. But then they say, "But if you can't keep up with it, we're going to take your $3 away." Come to find out that there's nepotism going on in that facility, because they're bringing in a family member to take his place. And they're trying to, so my son is very much the one that wants to volunteer to work over, because that's his heart. And plus, it's also his pocketbook. I mean, you work more hours, you're going to get paid more because it's overtime. And so these past week, after he turned down the promotion, they come and said, "Hey, Charlie, you want to work till 9:30? Nope, 7. How about 9? Nope, 7. How about 8:30? No, 7. And at 7 o'clock, he clocks out and he goes home. He's finally beginning to realize that's the way the world works. And I cannot imagine what you have to go through as a recruiter when you have to deal with family-owned run businesses, because they want what they want. They want family, and they don't realize that family, when it comes to business, family shouldn't be involved. I mean, it should be, because that creates nepotism, it creates favoritism. And in the private sector, there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. And there's nothing illegal about it. It's just wrong.
Well, I would generally agree with that, but I would also say, let's leave it open for a case-by-case basis, because some families have pretty strong cohesion. The 5 Kauffman children, if we were in business together, the problem would be we all want to be in charge.
Right.
But by the same token, there are some brothers I can work with 24/7, 365. And, it's just a case-by-case basis. The thing is that wherever somebody goes, they need to build what I call career equity, and that with building their career value, because what somebody gets paid is directly relative to the value they can bring to the table. I've got a seafood restaurant in Atlanta right now, and they are in need of organization, need of recipe books made. They're in need of a training program, and I've got a guy who's going to do all that for them. But he comes at a pretty high ticket, about $80,000 a year, to be their executive chef / director of kitchen operations. 2 years ago, if you told me somebody in a $2 million seafood restaurant is going to make $80,000 a year as the head of the kitchen, be like, really? Well, in this market, you will.
Yeah.
So, it's all about building value. And if your son doesn't feel like he's learning or growing, move on.
Right.
Well, that's exactly what he's doing. We've talked about this company before, which is Buc-ee's, huge business based in Texas, and they're spreading east. And he has already applied and has already been given an opportunity to have an interview at the end of the month. And starting pay is $19 an hour.
Right.
And, and this is going to give him an opportunity, because where he's at now, he has no insurance, no benefits, no vacation. Now he has an opportunity to get 401k, health insurance, 3 weeks vacation the day he's hired. Okay. Wow. So it's benefits galore. And we told him, listen, if you don't apply for this, I will.
Yeah.
I mean, at $19 an hour and, instant vacation. I mean, but Chris, we talked about this before. You don't like working with restaurants who don't offer benefits.
Right.
It's that is what attracts people to work. And that's what's attracting him. The pay is good, but it's the future, because now he sees a future. Yeah, do I want my son working for a convenience store? Not really, but this is an organization that could give him an opportunity to grow and move up, which, you in Chick-fil-A, unless you own the franchise, you're not going anywhere.
And you cannot sell that franchise either.
No. Well, are you sure? Because this is the second owner of this particular franchise.
Well, maybe the first, You cannot sell it and then go do something else, is what I'm saying. Is that, I heard if you're a State Farm insurance rep and you got your own State Farm agency and a Chick-fil-A, it's not like you can sell it and take a bunch of cash and hit the road.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's correct. If you sell the franchise, you're done. You can't do anything. Yeah, okay, that's yeah, I understand that.
Let me just jump in here and interrupt. Is there any other questions for Chris? Yeah.
Well, I just want to give, first of all, I want to thank Chris for the shout out. And Rick, you're preaching to the choir here, because any small business, any family operated business competing with the Olive Gardens of the world, it's really tough. And, that's my whole being. But I do want to thank Chris. I've had the honor and opportunity to work with some of his clients. They all love him. Chris said something that's really important, in that, first of all, he's a straight shooter. He is a true professional. He really knows his business, and his clients not only trust him, but I think some of them actually have an affection for him. So, Chris, you're a great guy to know, and you bring a lot of value to the group and to the industry.
Thank you.
Howard, I've got some relevant comments for Chris here.
Sure.
Just so everybody understands, Chris had cold called me when I was working at a restaurant in 1984 and ended up placing me at Ruby Tuesdays. And that led to, in a lot of ways, it led to what I'm doing right now. So we've had a great relationship over the years, and I can attest to dozens of people that he's placed that I know. What people think of him in the industry here in Atlanta, highly competitive market, and probably the most recognized recruiter that I know about in Metro Atlanta. I know there's only 6 million people here, but it's still a pretty big market. Mm-hmm. And so just want to attest to that he's a pro and maintains relationships and contacts and digs in to find people. I wasn't looking for an opportunity when he called me. Someone who I worked with at the time, I was at Pizzeria Uno. Someone who I worked with had interviewed with him, and Chris did some digging to find out who else was there, looking for a certain profile of person. I got the phone call, and I didn't know what would happen with the interview. I wore a sport coat that I left the tag on just in case I could return it, because I didn't wear a lot of sport coats. I thought I was being strategic. Of course, I never did remember to return the coat. But anyway, but it was a great experience. I was there for many years, had some good success there, and went on to be, become a restaurant owner, later a restaurant broker, and then later a consultant. So Chris was really the person that pointed me in the right direction in Metro Atlanta, from a dead end place where I was, that he recognized was a dead end place that I didn't.
I had heard that they were going to leave Atlanta from another industry contact. So I'm figuring, if they're going to leave Atlanta, and if this guy happens to like Atlanta, hey, this guy is going to be pretty much a target market to talk with me. Yeah, a nice, fair-haired, some people would say headhunter, I'd say broker of opportunity. So,
yeah,
my
quite an
name,
accolade. Wow.
My name is Chris Kauffman, and I approve this message.
Well, so do we, Chris. I thank you very much for a very informative and informational presentation. Brian, you want to say something?
Yeah, about Chris. There's another side to Chris nobody knows. Chris is a comedian. Tell him about it, Chris. You made it on the Clean Air commercial.
On the what?
Yeah, that's at chriskauffman.com. It was a TV commercial where there was a writer's strike, and they wanted me to show them somebody who's frustrated in Atlanta traffic. And at chriskauffman.com, it kicks off with my 30-second not an info, but a 30-second commercial for the Clean Air campaign. Ironically, way before COVID, this commercial came out, and it's talking about the advantages of teleworking versus, using your car. And so it was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I thank you again.
If you've ever ridden with Chris in a car, you can see that the commercial actually has relevance.
I'm gonna look it up now.
If anybody else would like to schedule their presentation, even if you've done it before, there are things that you can go into in a little bit more depth. And like I said before, the whole intent of the presentation is to get us to know more about what you do. And so that we get to know a little bit more about you. And Chris is the guy to know in the recruiting field. So again, thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I got your name right.
Don't forget the acronyms. Go ahead.
All right. I want to, we're going to do our intros, but I want to start with Steve, who is here for the first time, right?
Yeah.
And
Hi,
got an interesting product company. Tell us
Yeah.
who you are, what you do,
Sure.
where you are, and Bruce, listen up.
Sure. So, Howard, good to see you again. We've been in touch for a long time, and I appreciate what you do and everything. And I've run into and worked with a lot of you and or met you out there. I've been in restaurants since I was about 10, 12 years old. Ran them up in Chicago, was with US Foods, Multi Foods, most recently Trimark for the last 5 years as director of sales for the South. And I recently left them and I'm over at a company called Earthkind. So Earthkind is totally different. It's way out of my box, but they needed a director of sales to come in and do their national business and then create a team and get people out there. Well, what it is it's an earth-friendly pest control. So we are the first developer of a no-kill botanical best pest deterrent. So when you're talking about rats, mice, you're talking about ants, roaches, you're talking about spiders, moths. That's all we do. Like literally, it's not like we got sprays, we don't have bombs, we don't this and that. It is something that you can have out and your kids can play with it. Your dogs and your pets can sniff it and hang out. You could actually have it in a food pantry next to the food. So we've got it's EPA approved. The product right now we're at about 15 million in sales. And it's really the focus in the beginning was the farming industry. It was founded, Carrie had a farm, the visionary and founder, and she kept having like she'd set a tractor aside for a month or two and she'd have to go back out there. When she did, the mice would get in there, eat the wires, and they'd eat the inside, and they're like, oh. So she had to figure out how to fix that. Well, long story short, she didn't want to kill them, didn't want to do traps. It was too much of a pain. She created these, got different plants and saw that which bark wasn't getting eaten in the middle of the wintertime. And it was the pine bark from the balsam fir. And so she went and grabbed that, did some oils, put those essentials together and created a little packet, put that in there, and none of them came. No mice, no rats, they all left. So again, not killing them, but really just sort of telling them, guys, you don't want to be here. It's got a nice smell to it. So it's actually pleasant to us. It's not overpowering by any means. And I'm actually the kind of person, if I walk in a department store in the perfume section, I'm like exiting stage right or left. I literally would get a headache. And I worked in the warehouse with them for a full day in that smell. It was fine. It's not an overpowering at all. So I say that to say where we're heading next. So right now we're in retail. We're Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, Tractor Supply, so on and so forth, and even some grocery stores. The next thing is commercial, right? And so that's kind of why they brought me, because my background is restaurants and food service and institutional universities and even warehouse. And that's where we're heading. And so I'm looking to get with some of the big chains, some of the ones you even mentioned there. We're working to try to get in Chipotle right now, Panda Express. And basically, we're the add-on. So we're not going to tell them we're going to take over your pest control. We're not going to tell them we're going to eliminate it because we're inside. We're not trying to protect the outside border. That's sprays, that's other crap, that's whatever else you want to do. But inside your building, which is really where you're trying to protect, right? So When those things come inside, what do? They're eating that at the bag of food. Once they get into one, you don't know where else they've been. You end up having to throw a bunch out. And now if they get into the restaurant or other areas, well, we put the pouches in the area. Literally, when they come in, if they enter that area, they smell that, they will leave. I mean, it's as simple as that. The pouches work for 30 to 90 days. And it's proven. I guess that's the best way I can say it. It's not, there are other things out there. There's only one that's actually similar enough to us, and they use a peppermint or a mint scent, and that efficacy is only about 40%. Ours is close to 90. And I mean, it's sworn by over 1 million farmers every year that use this. It's in so many different places right now and just growing. So I don't know if that gives you enough, and I can send some info, but that's who we are. And I guess I'll just open it up if anybody's got questions on what I just threw out there.
Are you national?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well,
Steve, I just have to tell you something. I mean, I just sold my home.
Yeah.
And I used it for vacation renters. And on several occasions, I had visitors that didn't want to leave and they weren't paying me any rent. And I actually did a lot of research. I looked at essential oils and all of this stuff. I learned that rats have an amazing sense of smell.
Yep.
And the two things that were successful was one were mothballs,
Yeah.
and the other was peppermint. Now the mothballs, I couldn't get the smell out of my garage for months and months and months. And the peppermint was actually very nice, but still kind of overpowering. And when you have guests that are paying a lot of money to stay at your home, they don't want to smell the peppermint. So I'm intrigued, and it's a bark thing. So
that's actually an area we're really going after. I'm talking to one company right now that Brian helped me with, and we're looking at Airbnbs as well and trying to get into them to say, listen, and like what you just said, so mothballs, right? That's well, we have a moth product. So now you smell this moth product versus mothballs, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that one's good. That's just it. It's like those overpowering smells, and even, you know, like you said, the mint does work some. But I'm telling you, let's say you have a car, you have an antique car, it's 80 years old, 50, whatever the year is, right? It's old, and you cover it up for 2 months at a time sometimes, right? And then you go to take it out. Well, guess what happens in that 2 months, all right? Little critters come, they have a little party, you know, and I'm telling you, if it hasn't happened to you, it probably will. It's happened to me. Happened to me one time when I left my car at the airport for a week. I'm like, seriously? A week? So it happens, and you can put these pouches in your car, you can put them wherever, but that's a big deal. And our product, when it's there, it just, yeah, that's exactly where we're trying to go. I guess is the best way to say that. Appreciate it. Yeah.
okay. Well, thank you and welcome.
Thanks. Good to
We
see
want
you.
to go into our regular scheduled intros. So we've got enough time. Let's try to keep it down to about a minute, and then we can get out at a scheduled time. Bruce, just before we start that, did you receive the email I sent you with that coffee dispensing kiosk?
no, I'll have to take a look at it.
Okay, when Terry and I were in Austin at the airport, there's a company that has a kiosk that serves coffee.
Right. I know about the one in Austin, and it's not
Not yours
not
anymore.
Israel.
I know.
Yeah.
All right.
Howard, do me a favor. Would you resend it? Because I was on a email deletion trip the other day, so you may have gotten lost in the shuffle there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our other newest face on the board, Rick G. Give us your abbreviated elevator speech so that we can all do ours.
Howard, thank you so much. Good to be here again. Some familiar faces, some new faces. Thanks again for having me. Chris, by the way, great presentation. Rick Giambanco with Premier Solutions. We're located in Fort Lauderdale. We help companies save money on their monthly expenses, their overhead cost. We do that by expertly renegotiating expenses like utilities, software, telecom, waste, all of these expenses that a lot of restaurants obviously have and obviously want to keep that cost down. We also identify and resolve any errors we find, any overages we find, and of course, the savings we find. We're able to obtain these savings while keeping the existing vendors. So renegotiating with the existing vendors and keeping the same quality of services. So nothing changes except the price. No contract, no upfront cost. And of course, we are on contingency. I know Chris is not a big fan of that, but we only earn a portion of the savings we deliver after they're delivered. So no risk for the client. We average about $50,000 to $75,000 per business, so substantial. And then I'll end with this. We just picked up a restaurant in Alabama. They were paying their electricity bill just every month, no questions asked. They didn't think we could do anything. We looked back at the past 5 years and found a $35,000 mistake over the 5 years. They are now getting a $35,000 check. And we started about 30 days ago. So within 30 days, here's a $35,000 refund, and they're now so thankful and able to reinvest it into their restaurant. So guys, if you know anyone who's looking to review their cost, to reduce their cost, it doesn't cost anything to have us look. Rick Giambanco with Premier Solutions, helping businesses pay less. Howard, thank you so much for having me again.
Thanks for coming.
Rick, can I ask you one question? Because I had a number of conversations recently with folks that are in Texas.
Okay.
And they have been really bitching about their water bills.
Yep. So is LA. We're getting our second locations in Los Angeles, and we work with a ton of churches and nonprofits and restaurants out there as well. That's the main thing right now is our water bill is out of control. And again, we look into it, we find the errors and we take care of it. But yeah, are you getting the same sort of complaints that it's just skyrocketed?
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I spoke to 5 people and all 5 people brought it up.
Yep.
I don't know if I bring it out in them, but
yeah. Listen, they just, it's a lot. And a lot of times it's not the usage. Here's the biggest thing, and you guys are all part of restaurants. You know this, Howard. I'm sure you run into it. It's not how much you use. It's the human error. It's the fees. It's the taxes. It's almost everything else in your invoice that shouldn't be there, or that you have the wrong rate, for your account to begin with, and you had no idea. Somebody set you up wrong, and you're like, okay, here's the invoice, pay it. You're not thinking twice, and yeah, it's bad. Any other questions or Howard, thanks again.
Okay, Steve and Rick, I just want to let you know that at the end of the meeting, I will send everybody a spreadsheet with the contact information of everybody that's here. So you don't have to worry about writing down names and numbers. Now, for those of you who are already on that spreadsheet, if there is an empty space or there is something wrong on that spreadsheet, please let me know about it so that I can make the corrections for the future. Okay. Bruce, the reason that I asked you to listen up, I was supposed to have somebody here who does robotics. So I thought it would, and I don't know what happened, but we'll try and get him next week. So,
well, they should replace him with a robot.
Hey, Howard,
Yeah.
Howard, at Florida
Yes.
restaurant shows right now, there are 4 booths for robotics that are there.
yeah,
that I can find.
I met 3 of them
They're-
at the summit.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the fact that there's 4 booths there's going to be heavy robotics at that.
Oh, yeah,
show.
absolutely. And they're going
And
to be
they're going up and
running
down the
around.
aisles and avoiding people, and they've got
Exactly.
little trays, and
They
it's so
do.
cute.
That's what
One
they
was
do.
right next to us, so I'm going to see if I can employ
That's
them.
exactly what they do.
Nice.
No, they have little plates inside, and you can take them out. They're so cute.
They'll be putting little skirts on them soon.
Well, that's good. That's going to be next week's topic because
Oh, geez.
robotics is not only is a labor saver.
Wait a minute. Get me on the ground floor.
Okay,
many
Bruce,
people
why
know
don't you
this.
tell us what you do and who you are and all that?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bruce Silver. The name of my company is Employers RX, and we help you level the playing field against the big boys. So if you're a small or mid-sized company and you're looking to have benefits and be able to provide a 401k plan and dental and pet insurance and everything that employees are looking for today, we can make it available at little or no cost. And in some cases, we're saving restaurants thousands and thousands of dollars while eliminating all of the employee administration issues that they're dealing with on a weekly basis. So give me a call. My name is Bruce Silver, and the name of my company is Employers RX. You can see the phone number right there. It comes directly to me, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Howard. It's a great group.
Thank you. Yeah. Rick Israel, let's keep the elevator speech because we're running short on time today.
Gotcha. Real quick, I guess I'm the only one in here that is not involved in the restaurant industry, but actually I'm in the back office of a restaurant industry and the fact that I can help individuals with insurance. So my niche is Medicare, but we also do ACA. And so I can assist individuals in Florida and Alabama right now, Georgia still yet to come in the ACA. We are at the beginning of our annual enrollment period. So if you know of anybody that needs a free review or free consultation of their current Medicare plan, my information will be in the email that Howard will send out. So appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Terry, good morning.
Good morning, Terry. Today's restaurant news. What I do is me and my team, we find restaurants that are up and coming when they've signed the lease, when they've broken ground, when they are entering. I got a press release this morning that I will share. West Coast chain where we just came from, one of my little favorite places to stop, Jack in the Box, is going to be entering Florida. They have no no locations here now, but they will be entering Florida. They are now looking for spots starting in the Orlando area. It's a great little chain, and very happy to see them coming here. They are part of Del Taco, who also owns them. They do have locations in Central Florida. But what we do monthly is we do a leads report. We have one for Georgia, we have one for Florida, and we give you the name of the establishment, lots of information in the info column, owner's name. There's a column for phone numbers, email addresses, vital to many, many people, about when they're opening, sometimes the size. Do they have a bar? Do they have a patio? What stage of development they're in? And that's what we do. And there's at least in Florida, there's a minimum of 50 to 60 brand new leads every month. So if you want a sample, anybody wants a sample, email me, call me. I will be happy to send it over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brian, I want to thank Brian for giving us an email blast this week, and it's getting great numbers, by the way. I'll let you know later.
Okay, I
Brian?
appreciate that. I'll keep it real quick. Chris, great job. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right.
Yes.
Real quick, Brian with Rogue Financial Group. We are a commercial equipment financing company. We work all over the country, and our prime focus is hospitality and breweries, things like that. And what we do is commercial equipment financing, and it's from a small to large projects. When I be more specific real quick, when we talk about equipment, FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So front of the house, back of the house, signage. I'm just finishing up something here where I've actually financed some HVAC units. So things that it maybe are attached to the building, whatever I can do. And some soft cost stuff I can finance. So again, Brian with a Rogue Financial Group. Thanks.
Yeah, we did an email blast for Brian this week, and so far he's gotten over 4,000 opens on the email, which is really nice. Ed, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, by the way. My name is Ed Gerton with Seco Sales out of Orange Park, Florida, and we're an equipment supply company that specializes in frozen dessert equipment. So we have batch freezers, soft serve machines, blast freezers, display cases, whipped cream machines, slushy machines, chocolate machines. And we service generally Georgia and Florida and the Caribbean. Anyway, Seco Sales in Orange Park, Florida. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Rick Moore, good morning.
Morning, everybody. Rick Moore, Bidpoint Business Solutions. We're here in the group representing same day and collateral-based financing. So we work off the business's sales history. There's no collateral involved, and things happen pretty quickly. So bid leads for us are restaurants and contractors primarily. I want to mention Rick G. I'd like to talk. We do a lot of things that are on the other side of the coin from what you do. There might be some synergy there. And Brian, I think we've been playing phone tag, and let's see if we can tighten that up today.
Okay,
That's it.
you got it. Thanks.
Okay, well, just right there is a microcosm of what this group is all about and what any of the networking groups are about. Somebody in the group, here's what you do. It lights a bulb in their head, and they want to get to you and talk to you. You know, it may not be a sale today, but once they get to know you and once you get to know them, it's the contacts, it's the networking that leads to sales. A introduction to a client is an 80% chance of a sale rather than a cold call, which is only 5%. And therefore, I have a quick pitch, my elevated speech. I'm Howard Appel, founder and publisher of Today's Restaurant News. We've been publishing since 1996, and we offer many different things. We offer a newspaper online for the restaurant industry. We offer email marketing, which I've done this week for Brian. We do video email marketing, which we can do on a one-on-one basis with you, or if your company has a video already set up, we can send both of those out to our database and social media. And of course, the meetings and the restaurant leads report that Terry does, and she works really hard on it, and she provides a lot of good information. And the last thing that we're doing now, it seems to be helping restaurants with their filing for the ERTC refund. Very, very important. The industry is hurting. People need to look, see if they qualify, and it's an easy first step to do it. There's no cost involved. It's all on contingency. Sorry, Chris, but it's all contingency. And I've got several people in excess of $150,000 refunds. So if you think that you might qualify, or you know somebody who may, get in touch with us. And I didn't forget anybody this week, did I? Okay. Well, I thank you all for coming. I thank you, Chris, for a great presentation. If anybody wants to schedule a presentation, please get in touch with me. And Steve, welcome.
And I'll be in touch. We'll talk.
We'll look forward to having you back. And Rick, welcome back. And we'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Howard. See you
Rick
guys.
G, I'll call